Hello and welcome to Cinema Savvy for a brand new movie review. It's myself, George, and today I am going to be reviewing The Gentleman, the new film by Guy Ritchie. Now, it's just me that's seen this one so far for myself, so I'm just doing this review solo tonight. Of course, want you all to comment and get along as you usually do. Before I go into this review, I just want to quickly speak about the video me Tate, and Chris did earlier this week, which are definitely worth checking out. Of course, 2020 is the start of a new decade, so we've done a top 25 list of sort of 2010 to 2019. We've each done our own video, each edited it. So if you haven't checked it out, please check them out. It's in all three, and they're great. There's no aggro, there's no nothing like that. It's just three people picking their own list, getting them uploaded. So definitely worth a check. However, with Gentlemen, that brings us to our very first review of the year, directed by Guy Ritchie. A very, not controversial director, but a very niche director. I think it's the best way of saying it. On this channel, we're not the biggest fans of him. I'm going to say that myself. I've only seen a handful of his films. I've really enjoyed the two Sherlock Holmes. Wasn't a big fan of Aladdin. And I've only seen a snatch of his sort of more prolific British gangster films. However, when this film was announced that he was returning to doing British gangster films, that went down, I think, a lot better than some of his previous films had done. Obviously, he did the awful King Arthur adaptation, the Sherlock Holmes. I want to say controversial to a point. I actually prefer them over the TV series, but it was kind of the Guy Ritchie take in these blockbuster worlds. Obviously, we've then got Aladdin, which, you know, last year's Disney juggernaut, grossed over $1 billion, all for reviews, but everyone saw it. So he's kind of gone off the sort of the British gangster scene, and this is his return to that. Now, I mentioned earlier I was interested to see this. I actually really enjoyed it going into it. I'm going to go into the plot. This film is about an American businessman, Mickey Pearson, played by Matthew McConaughey, who wants to sell his drug empire to some American businessmen. That's the core point of it. If anyone's seen any trailers, you know that this is an ensemble piece. We've got Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Henry Golding, Michelle Dockery, Jeremy Strong, Eddie Marsan, Colin Farrell, Hugh Grant, to name a few. I think there's some more off the top of my head that have already gone past me, but it was a big cast. A lot of British names there. But it's Jeremy Strong. If I said Mark Strong by accident, that's my bad. I keep getting the two mixed up. Jeremy Strong is not Mark Strong. You'd assume Mark Strong would be in a British gangster film. I think that's why. Anyway, so as I mentioned, it was a low-key British film. Some big names in this, without a doubt. Matthew McConaughey in the lead role. I love seeing Matthew McConaughey, obviously, instead of some of my favourite films. I think he's probably had one of the strongest. We're talking about decades. I think last decade, I think he and Leo DiCaprio probably had the two best decades of any actor. I'm sure I've probably forgotten a name or two, but as you look at someone over those 10 years, I think he's a standout. And it was interesting seeing him, you know, not only the fact that he's American, but his take on sort of British gangster stuff. And they explain it quite well. They do a whole sort of, you know, here's an origin for this guy where he is. It doesn't take too long to do it. It just gets straight to the point. And he's kind of, well, he's Matthew McConaughey. I can't really fault it. He's fine in the film. The performances are all fine. I will actually say I thought the script was very strong. A couple of minutes in, I was a bit nervous, thinking, "Oh God, is this going to be one of those, you know, Guy Ritchie films? Is it just going to keep swearing for the sake of swearing to try and come across as cool?" And it wasn't that. This was a film that I think was very well written. You have a very interesting narrative points where rather than have story A to B, you've got Hugh Grant playing narrator. Hugh Grant is exceptional. If you don't know Hugh Grant, you probably wouldn't notice Hugh Grant. He's got an awful Cockney accent. Awful as in great performance, but awful in the sense of it's a horrible accent in real life too. So apologies to those that have one. Hugh Grant's fantastic, and he's the unreliable narrator, essentially talking to Charlie Hunnam for the whole film with all the events happening, and what comes along the way is all the twists, all the turns that come with this. I think it was a very risky strategy, something that could have just come off as like a TV episode. However, it worked. And I think there's credit to that he managed to get it to work. I think had it been too much of Hugh Grant, it wouldn't have worked. It would have been too unreliable narrator. Having just him talking once or twice, then scenes for 20 minutes at a time, and that also wouldn't have worked. So there's quite a delicate balance to get that right, and I feel that he did. And then when we've got this happens too, the actual story-wise, it is interesting. You know, it's very simple. As I said, drug dealer wants to sell his business, and some people obviously will probably criticize the fact that this is a film about drugs, all that kind of stuff. There's, you know, it's a British gangster film. I think if you haven't seen any British gangster films before, this is going to be a bit of a struggle. not necessarily the language and the action, but it's very British to the sense of sort of London council estates and poverty stuff. Obviously, language abuse. I think you need to have not a British mind that comes across really narcissistic. I think you need to be sort of open to, this is a Guy Ritchie film, as terrifying as that is to say. You can tell it's one of his. This will be very popular with a certain niche crowd of people in England. Sort of imagine like football fans all loving it, people that are getting sort of on the session every weekend. It's that kind of film. That being said, I've really enjoyed this. I thought it was well done. I actually think the directing was great. At times, it became a bit too much. Not even the language, but once you sort of get hit with 3 or 4 twists, you keep assuming another one, and that works to your favor. Then it goes against your favor. So it's one of those where I think that it worked for what they wanted to do. Is this kind of, it's not an Oscar film, obviously. It's not a big blockbuster. It's a solid like B-lister film. You don't really get an awful lot of them. So I think it's a film that you can have a lot of fun with. You don't need to take it too seriously. However, you do need to be slightly switched on because there's a lot of points to follow. I'm not going to rewatch this at the cinema. I'll be interested in watching it again at home because I think there's a lot that can be picked up from a second viewing from this. And as I mentioned previously, I had good fun with this. It's a solid start to 2020. Obviously, I'm not going to do spoilers. We're not really doing spoilers anymore. But I will say that for any sort of British people watching, they absolutely terrorise the quote British gangster scene. So you've got very traditional, look at Guy Ritchie's first few films, Snatch, Lock, Stock. You've got, your big British tough guys with Cockney accents. What this kind of does is they kind of take the mick, but also kind of respect the modern gangster, the sort of chav in their 20s that's had a tough upbringing, stuff like that. There's some characters in this which are very likable in it, but you can tell from watching it that this is definitely taking the mick out of all of those. It doesn't hold back in doing that, and I think that works to the charm of the film. That it's not taking itself so seriously that it needs to be real, or that you're not taking itself too serious that it's not that much of an insult. It's having a laugh with you. If you're in on it, you're in on it. If you're not, you're not. And you might just think, well, what are these idiots doing on screen? But it's certainly, how can I say, after sort of recent events last few days, has a perfect take on the social media viral sensations. Then I saw the hashtags on Twitter yesterday, World War III. You'll know exactly what I mean when you talk about viral sensations. So there's that comes with it. And as I mentioned previously, it's very enjoyable. I don't have too much to say on it. As I mentioned, the performances are solid all around. Stuff I disliked, there's not really too much I disliked. I mean, I go in quite easy on some of these films, but it did the job. I enjoyed the script. I enjoyed the writing. I knew I was in on the joke of the whole thing. And, I think this will rub some people the wrong way. But I was kind of shocked when I actually looked at, not the Rotten Tomatoes is the be all and end all, but I was shocked at how much acclaim this has from critics. As I mentioned, Guy Ritchie is a very sort of split person. I think you either like him or you don't like him. And this is one where I definitely liked. So it's a pleasure to finally get that. And seeing it at cinema, sold out as well on the first day, which I definitely did not expect. I saw it on New Year's Day. But that's everything I kind of have to say about The Gentleman. Obviously, I mentioned previously I plugged our videos for the top 25 of the decade. Obviously, we're working on our list videos still for 2019. We've got the Oscar nominations coming up soon. So we're hitting Oscar season. Obviously, Golden Globes are tomorrow. We're going to have a lot more reviews coming out over the next month for yourselves. A lot of Oscar films, sort of normal films. It's going to be very busy. We'll have our predictions videos out. We'll be doing our Oscar live stream, the usual stuff. So stick with us. We've got a busy few weeks. Of course, like, share, comment, subscribe if you enjoy all that sort of stuff. Obviously, we're more active, so check us out on Facebook and Twitter, both facebook.com/cinemasavvy, at Twitter and at Instagram at cinema_savvy. Sorry, got them mixed up. But as I mentioned, thanks for watching, and do try and catch this film at the cinema if you can. Thanks.